We actually talked about classes and objects. We discussed a couple of different terminologies. So starting off with classes, what is classism? Anyone? Yeah.
It's kind of like a shortcut for like storing like variables or.
It's kind of like a template based on which we can create multiple similar objects. Okay, like template of storing students' information, template of like storing cars information. Okay, so we talked about classes and then we talked about objects. We also talked about instances. So what is instances? Or the process of instantiation? I'm just trying to recall because it is helpful for you. After in a week or two you'll be having your exam. So what are instance? Yep, you want to say something? Anyone? So instance is simply an object that is created out of a class template. So we remember we talked about the Toyota car class, and then we created Highlander object. So that Highlander object is an instance of that Toyota car class. Similarly, we create another instance, Corolla. Okay, so any number of objects that we create out of the class is called an instance, and the process of creating objects out of that class is called instantiation. Okay, we further talked about initializer method. What is initializer method?
Double underscore INIT.
Yeah, what is the purpose of it?
To initialize the variables.
Initialize a variable as its name suggests, but whenever we create an object whenever we create an object, the initializer method runs automatically, and whatever we define in the initializer method, it automatically executes. So you remember we discussed about functions. So functions are executed only when they are called. Similarly, the methods in a class are executed only when they are called, except the initializer method. When we create an object, initializer method automatically runs, and whatever you have written inside it, it runs automatically. Whether you are initializing a variable, whether you are printing something or executing something else, whatever is defined inside the initializer method is automatically executed. Okay. Okay, so another thing that we saw yesterday was the how do we reference and operate either a method from a class or any attribute. It is also known as member operator or dot notation, and you saw in the example that we discussed yesterday in the demo, we did not create this Toyota car class, rather we created another student information class method. But in order to access any attribute, you use the dot notation, or often referred as member operator. So Corolla dot color will actually fetch the color associated with the Corolla object, Corolla instance. Okay. All right, so it will print black. Let's do this activity. Match the definitions with their corresponding terms. So what is the first one? A method parameter that refers to the class instance. What is it? Self, yes. So self is a parameter which refers to the class instance. The second one, a name following a dot symbol, is among these options?
Instance.
So instance is again an object that we create. Okay. So dot symbol, with the help of a dot symbol, we can access either a specific method or an attribute. So among the available options, it is an attribute. Okay. What about the third one? Instantiation of a class. Now, an instantiation of a class which match the definition with their corresponding terms. Instance, yeah. What about the fourth one? A constructor method that initializes a class instance. We have just discussed this. The init method, and the last one, group of related variables and functions, is simply referred as a class. Okay. So there is one last thing that I wanted to talk to you about in this object-oriented paradigm. So class attribute is shared among all of the instances of that class, and the class attribute are defined within the scope of a class. And there are some another thing is called the instance attribute. So you can see here in the initializer method, we have an attribute named speed, and if we declare it with the keyword self, we can access this attribute in all of the methods. Okay, in all of the methods within the class. This race distance is defined outside any method. This is commonly referred as the class attribute. Okay, and it is visible to every object. This value will be constant across all the objects that we create out of this class template. Does it make sense? So remember, we created different instances for Toyota car, Highlander, let's say Corolla. So Corolla had a color, different type, different model. Similarly, Highlander had different types. If they were sharing, if I would have defined a separate variable outside any of the initializer method or any other method, this separate attribute with a defined value will be shared among all the objects, will remain same. Okay, this is what I meant to say here. So if name is not found in an instances space, then the class name is a search. So again, when we create an instance and we refer to an attribute, so first of all, the instance namespace is search, and if it is not found, then Python search the name attribute in the class namespace. There's one thing we were discussing yesterday, Adil. I mentioned that I will try to explain it tomorrow. There were two important things. I think one of the thing was related to self, right?
Yeah.
So,
Self. I remember that.
yeah. So maybe I can continue with the yesterday's demo just to show you. That the point was, if I do not declare self dot first equal first, okay, or let's say if I have self dot phone, instead self dot phone, I have phone equal phone. Okay, I am creating a new variable and assigning a value that I receive in this parameter list from outside, and assigning the same value to a new variable named phone. Or I can do it like let's say ph. Okay, so now this ph is not accessed. You can see if you are not using Microsoft Visual Studio, you will not be able to get additional information or any other IDE. But here you can see ph equals phone. I cannot access this variable ph in any other method. Let me try, let's say, print ph, and for the time being, I'm just So you can see it here. It is going to give me it is already giving me a warning that pH is not defined because it is not able to identify where pH is located. Okay, so this is why if I just change it with self dot pH, then I'm all set. So and I have to refer it here with self dot pH. Okay, so self keyword actually helps us access these attributes across all the methods within the class. Okay. Okay, so this was it. Okay, this is all about the classes.